Hello humans, and welcome to the Outer Realms. This is your host, the Gen X Gamer. Guys, hello from the Philippines, and today I want to have another conversation with you about topics that are just outside the borders of gaming, right? I wanted to do an what if episode. What if Nintendo had never broken ties with Sony and released the Nintendo PlayStation? That's right, way back when this could have been it. This would have been one console to rule them all. Let's explore that. What could have been, right? The Nintendo PlayStation is one of gaming's most intriguing what-ifs. A prototype born of a partnership between Sony and Nintendo, which was eventually broken by Nintendo, by the way, because they backstabbed Sony and went with Philips last minute. But, you know, that's how the PlayStation was born. But in the twist of fate, the partnership was dissolved. Sony had to stay the course, yes or no? They decided yes. So let's explore what could have happened. First, to explore that, we have to look at the nature of every company, right? Nintendo, by its nature, it's closed and has a very conservative approach. Nintendo's history is marked by staunchly controlled and family-focused approach to gaming, where they, have everything with the quality seal of Nintendo. Everything needs to be approved by them. During the 1980s and early 90s, they dominated the gaming market with the NES, the Super NES, the Game Boy, and they often leveraged their position to maintain like a near monopoly, right, on gaming. Developers were required to adhere to stringent licensing agreements, ensuring that Nintendo's quality control standards were met. While this safeguarded their reputation, it also really limited a lot of creators and third-party developers to what they could make. Nintendo's conservative stance on gaming content, affected a lot of titles. A prime example would have been Mortal Kombat, right? While Sega retained the blood and everything else like fatalities, Nintendo's version of the game replaced them with sweat and toned down fatalities because they needed to align with their family-friendly image. Though this approach, was approved by politicians and religious people and things like that, it wasn't really appreciated by gamers who wanted to play the game that they were playing in the arcades. It alienated older gamers, and it created opportunities for everybody else, including Sega at the time. They also, by their nature, over the years, they have struggled with technological advances. Nintendo's reluctance to embrace new technology is further highlighted by their cautious nature, right? Remember way back in the day for the Nintendo 64 that they didn't want to use CD-ROMs because cartridges had faster load times? They, decided to go that route, and that really cost them the leadership in the market. It was at that point where Sony PlayStation came in with CD technology. They were allowing for larger, more ambitious games with lower production costs. This was more friendly for the developers. So this conservative approach ultimately cost Nintendo its dominance. It really did. The PlayStation embrace of the CD technology combined with a developer-friendly environment attracted studios looking to push the boundaries of gaming. By the early 2000s, Sony had firmly established itself as the market leader. That PlayStation 2, man. Can you guys remember? I bought it with the excuse it's a Blu-ray. It was a DVD player too. Well, when Sony launched the PlayStation in 1994, they brought a fresh perspective to the gaming industry. Unlike Nintendo, Sony imposed minimal restrictions on content, allowing developers to create mature, narrative-driven experiences. This approach resonated with an aging audience that had grown up with gaming and craved more sophisticated content, more sophisticated games, more fatalities, baby. That's what we wanted back then. Sony's hardware innovations also set them apart. The PlayStation introduced memory cards, enabling players to save their progress, a DualShock controller. It became the standard for precision and comfort. Over the years, PlayStation, the brand, has continued to innovate with features like online multiplayer, PS2 and the PS3. We're defining industry consoles with titles like Final Fantasy VII, Metal Gear Solid, and The Last of Us. Today, PlayStation is synonymous with cutting-edge AAA gaming, and they dominate the home console market. Remember, the Switch is a hybrid system, right? It's not a strictly home console. Well, what would have happened, right, if the PlayStation would exist now as the Nintendo PlayStation? Had Nintendo and Sony remained partners, the gaming landscape would be drastically different. The Nintendo PlayStation might have combined Nintendo's, beloved IPs with Sony's technological advancements. However, Nintendo's strict policies on content would have stifled a lot of Sony's innovative work, right? Some of the things would have never come out, not by Sony anyway. It would have been a big gaping opening for PC gaming, for Microsoft, maybe the Xbox. Can you just imagine, for example, iconic games like Resident Evil, God of War. Those are the kind of games that Nintendo was shy away from. Now they carry them, right? But back then, when this was going on, they would have fallen under Nintendo's censorship policies. So it's unlikely that Nintendo would have the same impact that Sony has had. Because you're thinking about a world without a PlayStation. Can you imagine that? A world without Sony PlayStation? What would be affected, do you think? Number one, I think, diversity of content. Without Sony's permissive stand on content, gaming's evolution as far as content would have been stifled for sure. Second is technological innovation. Because Sony has always been a hardware technology company dealing with TVs and other things, they always want to be on the cutting edge, which is completely opposite to what Nintendo does, right? They don't want to do anything groundbreaking because they're afraid to make a mistake, and put their company in jeopardy. Features like CD, Blu-rays, and heavy online ecosystems would not have been prioritized because you can see it now. They're not prioritized now. The other thing is, without competition, the market would be a much different place. When Nintendo could have cornered the market, they did. And they would have done the same thing forever. Because when it comes to video games, let's face it, there's not a high pressure from governments to say, oh, we're going to regulate this as a monopoly. Because it wasn't that way for a long time. Now that gaming has gotten to this size, now they're looking at acquisitions like they did with Xbox. But back in the day, they wouldn't have. So what's the conclusion? What can we conclude from this? Well, let me tell you something. I think that breaking ties was a great thing. The dissolution of the Nintendo-Sony partnership ultimately was beneficial to the gaming industry. It allowed Sony to create its own path, push the boundaries of publishing of what Nintendo might have established at the time. And then the PlayStation success has forced Nintendo to adapt, right? To adapt some of the leading innovations in the industry and to focus maybe more on gaming and gameplay with, consoles like the Wii and the Switch, which prioritize unique gameplay experiences. Had the Nintendo PlayStation come to fruition, I don't think they would have done anything like that. It would be less diverse, less innovative. By having more competition, by these companies operating independently, Nintendo and Sony created different audiences and philosophies, creating a richer, more dynamic market for everybody. The what if of the Nintendo PlayStation remains fascinating, right? That's why we talk about it. That's why we think about it, right? And how we wish it would have come true sometimes. But when you really think about it and analyze it, it was a good thing that they never did because it brought us the innovation that we have today. All right, humans, that was this episode of the Outer Realms. Thank you so much for joining me. If you're a member, you get these early. Remember that. Please like and subscribe. It really helps the channel, guys, and I will catch you on the next episode, the next midnight episode of the Outer Realms with your host, Gen X Gamer. Guys, thank you so much. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care. New videos every Monday and Sunday. Thank you for joining me on another episode of the Gen X Gamer. Remember to like and subscribe, click that notification bell, and remember, never ever be afraid to be happy. I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.